Good afternoon, everybody. All right, now I know that it's been a long event, but I think we could do a little bit better than that. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. I am so excited to be here. My name is Elsie Johnson, and my Twitter handle that you see over here in the bottom right-hand corner is No One Does It Like Elsie. So feel free to tweet about how fabulous and insightful I am at any point during this talk using the hashtag TEDxDuke 2015. So I'm here to talk to you all today about generating energy and excitement around your big ideas, right? We all know what it's like to have a big idea. You wake up one day, you're walking around, you're doing things that you usually do, minding your own business, or if you're like me, maybe you're minding a little bit of somebody else's business. But regardless, all of a sudden it hits you, a big idea. Not a small idea, I'm talking about $1 million idea, the type of idea that is gonna change, wait for it, the world. I don't care if my idea is about a new way to cook bacon, I always feel like my ideas are gonna change the world. So you have this really big, amazing idea, and there's only one thing standing between you and greatness, and that's this. How do you get people to care about the thing that you want to create? How do you get people to care about the thing that you just created? Now, maybe you care, maybe your mom cares, maybe you're like me and you told your boo that if they don't at least pretend to care, there are like gonna be some real problems. But in order for any big idea to get bigger, you have to figure out a way to convince strangers to care about this thing as much as you care about it. You have to figure out a way to convince people to get on board with what you're trying to do. And not just one person, but ideally a whole lot of people need to get on board with what you're trying to do. So traditional wisdom will have us do something like this. They have this idea that you're supposed to try to get as many people as possible to be introduced to your idea. And if you're lucky, some of those people will convert into true believers of what you're trying to do. So you spend all this time, all this energy trying to get your idea out there in the world. And a few people may convert into really believing what it is that you believe, really getting as excited about your idea as you do. But the problem with this method is that it's time consuming, it's frustrating, and it can be really, really expensive. Because when you do things like this, you're required to spend a whole lot of time and energy and resources on people who may or may not ultimately decide to get on board with what you're trying to do. And if you are a small brand or an individual change agent, then that means you could spend time wasting valuable resources. But what if we could flip that traditional paradigm on its head? What if we could make generating energy and excitement around our big ideas look like this? Where instead of trying to get 1 million people to care about your big idea and what you want to do, you focus on cultivating a small group of true believers who will then share your idea with the masses. Well, spoiler alert, if you are a passionpreneur or an individual change agent, not only is it possible to do this, but this is actually the most effective way to generate energy, excitement, and attention around whatever it is that you're trying to create. Because the world has changed. And in large part, due to the internet and social media, if you're somebody with something to say or to sell, it's easier than ever to figure out how to create and disseminate content to people around the world. And that's awesome because it means that regular people, people like you and people like me, are now feeling more empowered than ever to launch and grow things that matter. Now, the problem, or the bad news, is that it is easier than ever to be seen and heard around the world, which means that there are more people than ever trying to be seen and heard around the world. It means that it's harder for us to capture and keep the attention of people who might otherwise be really interested in what we're doing. And that's really hard. And I know this because it happens in my own life and probably in your life as well. So my husband and I, we're spoiled. Whenever we're watching TV, we're either watching it on the computer or we're watching it on the DVR. And even if we are actually in front of the TV when a show is live, we will often record it, go watch another show, and then come back to the original shows just so that we can fast forward through commercials. Now, it's gotten to the point where on the rare occasion that I'm actually watching live television, I get legitimately offended when a commercial comes on. I'm like, a commercial? Oh no. Because the fact of the matter is, with so many people and places and things trying to capture our attention, we now have the ability to choose whether or not we want to give it. So if you're somebody who's trying to generate energy and excitement around what you're trying to do, the only way that you can do that is if somebody allows you to do it. And I know this because I've tried it both ways. In 2012, I created a blog called Color Girl Confidential. I decided that I wanted to start this blog, and I legitimately had no idea what I was doing. Like, at the time, the most technological thing that I did on my computer was use Microsoft Word. Like, there were times when I was still using Internet Explorer, y'all. It was bad. So when I say that I am not technologically savvy, I mean that I am not technologically savvy. But I was in the middle of my first year out of college, in the midst of my first real job and my first real relationship. And I was feeling all of the feelings. And so I decided that I wanted to create this blog to help me process some of the things that were happening in my day-to-day life. And early on, I experienced a conundrum that anyone who has ever created anything experiences. How do I get people to care about what I'm doing? I already knew that with tens of thousands of websites, I literally looked that up this morning, tens of thousands of websites being created every single day, that it would be really hard for me to try to capture the attentions of thousands of potential readers at one time. So I didn't even try to do that, because what I could do was try to figure out how to cultivate 5 truly loyal fans of Color Girl Confidential and hope like hell they would tell their friends. So that was my goal. I wanted to cultivate a small but passionate group of people who really believed what I was doing. I wanted to use my blog to impact 5 people. That was it. And I had no idea how I was going to do that. So I created a plan, and I didn't create a business plan, and I didn't create a marketing plan. Instead, what I did was create something called an impact plan. Now, the original impact plan that I did was not cute. It was like, there were stick figures, it was like written on like a paper towel that may or may not have been used at some point. There was just a lot going on. So I decided that I wanted to create for you all something a little fancier than what I originally did, but with the same idea. The impact plan. So an impact plan is something that, it's a plan that has 3 different sections. You have a before section, you have your intervention, and then you have your after section. And the goal of an impact plan is simple. What you want to do is you want to map out the impact that you're hoping to have, not on a global scale like we tend to do when we have a big idea, but actually on an individual level based on the people that you hope your idea will transform. So you start with the person that you're really hoping your idea will touch, and you start with them before they've encountered you, before they've encountered your amazing thing. And I like to break this into 3 different sections: head, heart, and feet. So you start with their head. What is this person currently thinking about ideas like yours or products like yours? What is their current knowledge around this type of idea or this type of product? And then you go on to heart. How does this person feel? How do they feel currently about ideas like yours or products like yours or projects like yours? And then finally you get to their feet. What actions are they currently taking? How is this idea or these type of products or these type of events or whatever it is that you're trying to create, what type of actions is that person taking? How is that manifesting in that person's day-to-day life? And that's them before you get to them. So then in the middle part, you want to talk about what is your intervention. This is your big idea. This is the thing that you've created. You want to talk about how this thing is going to get them from point A to point B. So if you've created a product, you want to think about what are the features? What is my product going to do? If you've created an event, you want to think about, okay, what is this event going to look like that's going to get them from point A to point B? As a blogger, I knew that what I wanted to create were really great blog posts. I knew I wanted to create an awesome newsletter that would go out once a week and make people laugh and be like, Elsie girl, you know me so well. And I knew I wanted to create a Facebook group where the women who are part of my community could interact with each other. So that was my intervention. Those were the 3 things that I was going to use to get my ideal person, this person that I was trying to reach, from point A to point B. So then in the 3rd panel, you want to think about after. So what happens after they have experienced this thing that you've created? What is their transformed knowledge around that particular topic, right? Like, what are they now thinking about products like yours, ideas like yours, events like yours? How are they now feeling? How are they feeling about this particular, not necessarily about your product or about your event or your idea itself, but how are they feeling internally? How are they feeling about themselves in relation to what you've created? And then finally, what are they now doing? What are they now doing that they weren't doing before you? Or what are they now not doing that they were doing before you? What does that look like? So you map out what the transformation, what you hope the transformation will be. And I did all of this before I started Color Girl Confidential. Because the fact of the matter is, I knew that if I wanted to get people to care, I had to show that I cared about them. So when I was creating a plan for CGC, I didn't create a plan for my success. What I did was I created a plan for the success of the people who would read my blog. It's not the same thing. And what I soon learned was that one does greatly influence the other. So 3 months after I launched CGC, Forbes recognized my blog as one of the top 100 websites for women. And with tens of thousands of websites being created every single day, they chose to highlight my 3-month-old site, because when they did the call for nominations, so many people had gone on, so many people who read my blog had gone on and shared how my blog had impacted them in some profound way that Forbes had to take notice. And it was interesting because it reminded me of a really important lesson anytime you're trying to create something. But it tells me that we as consumers are self-oriented. So we care about not just the product, but what is it going to do for me? So these people who are writing into Forbes, they weren't talking about how fabulous I was, which they could have, but they didn't do that. They talked about what my blog had done for them. Because as consumers, we're self-oriented. That's our focus, which means that as creators, we have to be service-oriented. It means that if we want to get people to care about what we're trying to do, if we want to get people to care about what we're trying to create, then it's not enough to make your awesome thing more awesome. You have to figure out how to take what you've created to make the lives of the people who are interacting with it more awesome. In traditional marketing, you have this idea that you want to go and reach a ton of different people. And you want to spend this time trying to figure out, how do I get a lot of people? How do I take that big number and get a small number of people who are going to really be invested in what I'm doing? But when you create an impact plan, or when you think impact first, it's a different mentality. Because instead of thinking about this huge number, getting down to a small number, you say, how can I cultivate a small group of really passionate people? How can I touch the lives of a small group of really amazing people so that they're excited to share with others what I'm doing? Because the fact of the matter is, changing the world, it's hard to quantify. But changing somebody's world, that's something that you can do. That's something that you can quantify. And it just means shifting your focus from, how do I get people to talk about my thing, to how do I create something worth talking about? And it means shifting your focus from, oh, here's what makes, what I've created awesome, to here's what makes the lives of the people who use what I've created more awesome. Because when you can do that, you don't have to worry about telling your own story, because the people whose lives that you've changed and impacted will tell your story for you. And that's how you generate energy and excitement around a big idea. Thank you.